Another Wednesday, another Pepe show. Adam, what's good? GM, high-speed internet finally. Looks like we're in a row without internet connectivity issues.
Bro, I'm rocking the fiber, baby. No more of this, like, cable modem stuff, man. Fiber all the way down, baby. It is crisp and clean, man. Delicious. Love it.
Absolutely Costa Rica's finest.
I literally spent like 2 hours like running I don't even know what they call that cable that looks like a big telephone line, like around our house to like plug into my kid's gaming thing so he could get his ping like 10 things lower for his Fortnite game. So that's what I've been working on, man. And if you know anything about ping, 10 or I think he got his ping down 20. That's a big deal in Fortnite land. 20 ping is huge.
Oh boy. All right, he's gonna be the top shooter. GM Chris, how are you feeling this morning?
GM, Adam, you sound better than ever. You sound great all the time, but man, you are hardwired, ready to rock. Another Pepe show. These things are going great. Always love kicking it with the Pepe squad. So yeah, ready for another week.
Oh yeah, dude. Coldie, long time at no talk, bro. I think it's been maybe 6 months since Filthy Fiat. How you been?
Been well. Good morning to everybody. Yeah, I've been good. Just it's funny. I'm actually working on something else that is associated with that drop. So it's kind of fun that these things are never one-offs. It's fun when the wheel keeps cranking on it.
Yeah, I promise that curated collection is coming. It is coming, right? It's almost a meme now at this point, but it is absolutely on its way. So it will help. That was a fun time. I also have to add a caveat. Apparently, I thought the Filthy Fiat was sold out. Coldie and I were messaging me. He said that during that time when Filthy Fiat was selling on Ethereum from his Bitcoin ordinals, apparently a pump group had come in and bought like a bunch of them and sent it to the floor or something of that nature. So
Dude, it was crazy. I mean, we were, that was literally, remember what was happening? It was like they were going instantly selling. It was weird what was happening there. I don't know what was going on. There was definitely like some hardcore flippers in there, who were, I don't even know what
they were. Yeah, they tasted blood and the fucking sharks came in. So as soon as I got wind of that, I just kind of shut the whole thing down, and they tried to fuck over the whole collection basically. So I just said no, I'm gonna take control, hold on to these guys, and then like I said, I have a new thing coming, so I'll be able to find the right homes to them soon.
Yeah, it's crazy now looking at it. Ordinals hit 40 million inscriptions, and that was
holy shit.
Yeah, and that was a sub 1 million, I think, wasn't it, or somewhere around there?
It might have been like 1.5 or something. It wasn't. I don't think it's. That's a good question.
Yeah, very, very early in the grand scheme of things. Yeah, 40 million they just crossed. It's absolutely wild. So we do have another featured fake rare artist on stage. Bryan, I'm excited to talk to you, man. Big fan of your art. It's always, one of the favorites, it seems like. So welcome to the show, man. Appreciate you for joining us.
Hey, thanks for having me. I'm also the president of the Coldie fan club. And it's great to be here.
Yeah, these spaces are pretty fun. We get two different fake rare artists together. Maybe they haven't been on stage together, and we just get to talk about Pepe's and art and everything of that nature. I'm gonna start off with some top Pepe sales of the week. I have it here on the live stream. There's actually pretty good sales. The top sale was BA Pepe for 4.6 WETH. We have 2 package claims sold for 2.3 ETH and 1.69 WETH. We are all Pepe 2 WETH, Trump Rare 1.06 WETH, Pepe Lisa 1 WETH, Time Pepe 1 ETH, and Dank Pepe 1 WETH, man. It was firing on all cylinders, dude. There are some sharks in the water in the Rare Pepe collection and the fake rares collection. 2 people specifically, one person, Lord Flashheart. I don't know who this person is, man, but this person has spent at least 50 ETH over the last month or 2 since the Rare Pepe curated. They are coming in and trying to buy all of the Pepes. There is I know Brinkster, shout out to him, man. He's been purchasing a lot, and there's a few other wallets that I've been noticing popping up slowly. Once that bull market does come back in, I think Pepes are going to be flying, man.
I noticed that package claim one, because I just see it on the timeline all the time as it's selling, because it's so memorable. I just love that one. It's a pretty cool one.
Yeah, it seems like everyone loves Joe Peace. I actually had no idea who he was until Fake Rares, so it was pretty cool. That was my introduction to a lot of these ETH NFT artists. So last artist of Fake Rare show, we had Jake Fried and Batstu was on. That was fun. Easiest way for us to start the conversation, we'll toss it up to Bryan first. Just give us a brief explanation. Who's Brian Brinkman, and how would you categorize your artistic style in NFT land?
Yeah, that's a good question. Well, I'm an artist. I've been doing this for 20 plus years, working in all sorts of industries along the way and doing independent art on the side. Got into NFTs almost 4 years ago. I think I'm about to hit my 4-year mark. It's been an awesome journey. My art is often a mixed media of animation, generative, 3D, and all sorts of other stuff. I love mixing and matching and kind of using fun visuals and iconography along with colors to kind of tell stories about my experiences within the space and my feelings on things. And it's I have art all over, and my Pepe card, Flicker Pepe, was a part of season 10, I believe. And it's based on a style of animation that I do in the space called Flicker Fusion, which is kind of a faux neon light flicker effect. I'll let Coldie go now.
Yeah. How about you, Coldie? Same question proposed to you.
What was the question? Like
Who are you in 30 seconds now?
Why are you so cold, Coldie?
Trying to figure that out every day, you guys. Yeah, so I'm similar to Brian. I'm a mixed media artist. My jam throughout my life has been stereoscopics. So I got into art by making art using 3D glasses. So I've always been trying to fool the eye, and by putting 3D glasses on, the images pop off the paper or the screen, and that always just like rattled my chains. I was like, holy shit! Like I got a kick out of that. So that kind of just really got me deep into art making. And, through that, I've experimented with a bunch of different types of stereo, including lenticular prints and physical art. I'm doing VR stereo art now and some other stuff that's coming out shortly. And that kind of plays into my Pepe. It's called Trompe Pepe. And there's a French word for, it's called, I'm gonna fuck this up, I don't even know how to really say it. So trompe l'oeil, maybe Brian can fix that. I'm sure all the French people are just getting these awful faces right now. They're like, God,
don't put that on me.
You just seem more cultured than me. So there's this French word that's fool the eye. So it starts with trompe. So I said trompe, like fool Pepe, like fool the Pepe, fool the eye. And it has a little wink in there where Pepe's eye is winking at you. So I try to use the play on words kind of from my style of art and make the dankest Pepe, because I collect Pepes too. So I've looked at these things for years and years, and I was like, if I ever have a chance to make a Pepe, it's got to be really dank. So I did my very best.
When did you first run into Pepe? When was your first? Do you remember the first time you saw a rare Pepe?
I first saw my Pepe. I guess when I was searching for crypto art in like 2017, I did a search, and the only things that came up were like crypto punks and crypto kitties and Pepe for the most part. So I would say like I got an introduction there. But then when I met people like I met Rare Skrilla at Bitcoin 2019 show in San Francisco, and that's where I really got a dose of the culture, and that's what really kind of woke me up to everything.
Yeah, previously, when you saw Pepe online, did you view it as a meme? Did you ever initially consider it as an art form where Pepe is now considered, this like it's its own domain? Was there ever a transition of considering it meme to this artistic form, or did you always consider it art?
I always looked at it as art because it was just so diverse, but there was a theme to it. So it's easy to kind of like put it into that box if I'm looking at like my art history context. But, the meme culture grew so much like after I came in. And I think that like, all these other memes helped kind of like solidify in my mind, like what the hell is a meme, because that wasn't in my vernacular, like kind of artistically growing up. But it's a no-brainer looking backwards. It's like, yeah, goddamn, like these are the most epic memes ever.
I agree. I'll propose, Brian, the same question to you. First, congratulations on celebrating 4 years as an artist in the space. That's quite some credibility. At what point during your NFT artistic career did you come across rare Pepe or just Pepe tokenized Pepes in any type of art form?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, I've been a fan of Boys Club since the old comics. I still have those like paperbacks from someone of my old roommate went to Portland and bought them at a comic shop and brought them back to me, and I was like,
wow, really? That's incredible.
Yeah. So I've always kind of been a fan of Matt Fury and that world. When I joined the NFT space, I wasn't very aware of like the rare Pepes, but I was aware of like the fan art of Pepe. I was collecting twerky Pepes, if you guys remember that, like 2020 thing. And there was all these kind of different. I didn't really understand the meme aspect of it as much as I understood there was like fan art, because prior to NFTs, I was doing like pop culture gallery shows like Gallery 1988 or Bottleneck, where you make kind of like high end fan art. And to me, this was like, oh, Pepe, this is just a bunch of Pepe fan art. And then I think through various ways, I kind of learned more about the rare Pepes and the fake rares and this kind of culture. And then I had a better understanding. And then I didn't actually start collecting them until right around the time I started, making my own and getting a wallet set up. I'd always seen them. I would say my favorite card that's still on my wish list is the Good Hair Pepe, if I'm saying it right.
Yep.
So yeah, I think it's always been around, but it slowly built to the point where I kind of got a fuller picture of it. But I always kind of knew it because of like Matt Cain's Homer Pepe homage piece and stuff like that. And it's for me, the Pepes have been kind of a weird history book of the space where you kind of look back and you see not just about the space, but in culture in general. It's memeing everything from everyday life.
Really the first derivative, the original derivative, because when you go through Rare Pepe, 1,774 different cards, they're all uniquely derived from either, IRL people, shows like The Simpsons, moments from the crypto community. And it has this variation of, is it news? Is it memes? Is it entertainment? Is it art? I think that's what makes Pepe very, very beautiful. But it began initially on Bitcoin, right? And so fake rares were also minted on Bitcoin. Bryan, was your fake rare the first foray into minting art on Bitcoin? And if so, what was that experience like, and how did it differ from Ethereum?
Yeah, it was. And it definitely it put me in that headspace I was when I first started minting on Ethereum, where I was like, I'm feeling lost and watching tutorials and reaching out for help. Thankfully, there's wonderful documentation. Shout out to all the people that have made like videos that walk you through it, and I was able to do it pretty easily. But it was setting up a free wallet and all that stuff. Yeah, it was. I haven't done an ordinal yet, but I'm sure ordinals will be just as complicated. I know Coldie's done ordinals, but yeah, no, I thought it was cool and it was interesting. It made me understand more about the Bitcoin blockchain by going through that process.
Did you have any type of, or was there any varying of your artistic expression on Bitcoin? I mean, it is through a Pepe instead of, just your general medium. Did it feel like a different type of cultural experience?
No, I mean it felt in the same kind of degen world as a lot of the other stuff because even on Ethereum there's these kind of like alcoves of smaller niche groups that you kind of create stuff for. But I think where it was interesting is you have to kind of follow some rules in terms of naming and all these other aspects of it. And like I really enjoy the concept of having to burn that card in order to make a new one, and this kind of scarcity that there will be a finite amount. I think that's like I haven't seen that concept done on Ethereum in that same way, and I thought that was really cool.
It is really uniquely. Coldie, you're a little bit more experienced in the art or minting your art to Bitcoin now. You have your fake rare on Counterparty. You've done a Bitcoin ordinals collection. Take us through the experience of build or creating art on Bitcoin.
Oh, experience and minting on Bitcoin do not go together. I appreciate the compliment. And after decades of smoking so much weed, I have no idea what I did back then. But what I can say is the first time I minted an ordinal, Raphael helped me figure this shit out. But I literally was looking at my Sparrow wallet that I randomly opened up like a couple days ago, and I saw my KC Rod Armor Satoshi, so I assume I did it right. I don't fucking know. But I went through the process much like Bryan, like scouring tutorials and like kind of hoping and praying, and then we saw like a confirmation. But even the minting didn't go correctly because I thought I could do an animated GIF, but I couldn't. So like it was the exact like what Brian's saying. It's like it felt like the starting over point, which was nice, where I quote unquote failed on my first like execution, but that was wonderful. Like it was a true experiment, and I was left with this memory and artwork. And luckily, I had help for my ordinals drop because it was my filthy fiat drop because it was much more complicated. It was minting 300 frames of an animation, and I needed help with compression. I needed help, getting these things like batch minted. So, the tools grew between my first two releases, but I can't say that I had any idea what was really happening.
Dogfather, what's on your mind? Question?
Man, that's so cool to hear. I mean, I'm a big fan of both of you, and just for all the people from ETH joining to this space, it has changed so much. I mean, now it's really 2 clicks and you can inscribe your stuff. You can have all kinds of cool features called like parent-child inscription and recursion and reinscription. All pretty cool techniques that even succeed to or can do more than you can do on ETH. So I can only highly recommend to dive into that. So the times of Sparrow Wallet, like in February, March, are over, and now we have like very sleek interfaces. So yeah, it's pretty cool, and I can only highly recommend everyone to experiment a bit more on ordinals.
That's super cool to hear because I want to dive in, but like I get this like anxiety barrier that's just like, oh God, like it's like a PTSD thing. So I'm glad that there's new tools because you show me a tool and I'll I can create around it. So I'll definitely take you up on that and learn some more.
Yeah, Dogfather's definitely the knowledgeable one. He's the stats and analytics guy, so he can definitely help you with there. The tooling and infrastructure is much vastly improved since we did it. Just for those who aren't aware, Coldie and Emblem Vault and Ordinals bot, we did a collaboration to where Coldie had this 10-second this 10-second artistic piece, but at the time in March, there really wasn't any type of tooling. So we decided to split it up into 300 unique panes. And then we had Ordinals bot inscribe them and then send them into 300 individual vaults, which then we sold on Ethereum because Coldie's community was primarily ETH dominant. So it just made it a better experience altogether. And now we're a little bit farther along, so the tooling is much better, but still not completely there. But again, not as terrifying as it once was. I saw Jamex has his hand up, so GM to you.
Hi, everyone. So cool to be here. Now maybe the challenge with ordinals is paying the price of inscribing. Like almost 1 year ago when it started, it was very affordable, and now when you want to inscribe something, it's like, whoa, the transaction fees are crazy. But it's also the cool part of trying to make the smallest file that you can make, and in the end, it gives artifacts and some style to the art. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it definitely is.
And I'll jump in. Like, I think you exactly nailed it, because as we look back, all of these experiments and things that we have to do to get it done, people who know the scene, like it's almost like a little like scrapbook where it's like, oh, I remember back then when you had to do it this way.
Totally.
And I think there's like a certain artistic touch that I embrace in that, where I'm not trying to I'm just trying to be as cutting edge as what like I can get done. So it's awesome that there's new tools, because there wasn't a tool back then. So we had to like FOFO and just fucking do it.
Exactly. I mean, that's part of that. That's part of the beauty of being early. Sorry, go ahead, Jamex.
No, I got to inscribe some very early ordinals, and like Coldie say, was like I need to seek help, right? Like I don't know how to do this. It's so stressing.
Yeah, I agree. What's going on, Brian?
Well, I was just going to follow up on what Coldie was saying, because Coldie knows back when I joined the space in early 2020, videos weren't allowed on like Super Rare. You had to work to get as much information and animation and frames into 50 megabytes of animated GIF as possible. And it was that same dilemma of like, how do you crunch the compression as much as possible to get as much as you can out of this? And I see that same thing happening now with ordinals.
Yeah, it is.
But it's lovely, right? Like, sorry, Jake. It's
Good.
lovely to know that the art is on the blockchain, that there is no third party, no IFPS. Like, if you have a Bitcoin node in your house, the art is there, and that's amazing to think about it.
Bryan, you brought up the interesting point about super rare and kind of, how the space has progressed. Maybe this is a touchy topic for artists, but how have you adjusted to this, whole royalty situation? It's interesting, right? Because when you mint art on Bitcoin, there's no expectation of royalties, but on Ethereum, that was kind of built in to the ideology over the last 4 or 5 years. But now it's kind of being pushed in a different direction. We saw a lot of layoffs from super rare, but from a, one of the top artists in the space, how have you made adjustments, and what is your perspective on kind of the ongoing situation in the NFT art world?
I mean, I haven't really made huge adjustments. I'm still kind of going about things in the same way. I think the biggest adjustment is there's a disconnect there used to be a connection between artist and collector where we were both kind of working together for the greater, their success was my success and my success was their success. Now I feel like it's a little disjointed in that way, where like once the primary is over, it's just a bunch of collectors doing their thing outside of your purview to a degree. So I do kind of lament the fact that we lost that, but I do think in terms of the art side of the space, most collectors are still very supportive, and many still pay royalties. Yeah, I don't know. I think where I've seen the biggest change is like, as an artist 2 years ago, I priced a lot of my work probably half of what I should have because I figured I would recoup the difference over time with royalties. Now I'm a little more, I have to kind of price things without that kind of leeway, and I have to, shrink my supplies down and not, I never did open editions, but like, I think the open edition meta is now dead because there's no real, it only hurts the artist in the long run to put out that huge a supply where they're not seeing any sort of value given back. So there is some adjustments. I think, I used to love giving like airdrops to collectors, knowing that if they flipped it around, it was, basically free money for them and I would get a little tip on the side. Now it just hurts my supply, and so, there's some adjustments, but overall it's not changed my strategy a huge amount, but I feel like there's less fun to be had, if that makes sense. What do you think, Coldie?
Yeah, I think much the same thinking. In my mind, we've kind of gone from a blockchain contract to like a social contract, and I think it's like, over the 5 years I've been tokenizing, I've done a really strong effort to kind of curate my community in a sense where I have people around me, that have held art for 5 years, right? They got these things early on super rare, and they're like coveted things that we have conversations about, and like that's created relationships out IRL. Like I hang out with people, like, and I think that it's not just it is. I think the secondaries with a lot of my collectors, especially these diamond hand collectors, when they sell it, like they've already let it be known, like it doesn't matter like if it comes out of the contract or not. Like they want to like celebrate this artwork, and someday when it sells, they're like, oh dude, you're gonna get a commission. Like who cares about all the noise about who deserves what? We're in this together, and that's cool, and I don't ever expect that, but when that happens, it's awesome, because that was the ethos that brought so many artists here. Like we can be living artists that can actually live on our art. Like the Monet family, like probably didn't get much from that biggest sale that just happened. Like they got nothing. They got maybe some notoriety for Monet, but this is like the paradigm. And if we crush that paradigm fully, I think it takes a lot of the it just changes the narrative back to the old ways of trad art, you know, and I think there's a way to work together, but I think we can teach each other things, and trad art can look at what we're doing and maybe like say like, wow, that's like kind of cool that you guys are doing that, you know.
Have you guys seen anything that's kind of unique or just different as far as anything artists are doing to create and encourage the payment of royalties through either like gated communities or, you know, have you seen anything that seems to work in that direction?
I think everyone's experimenting. Just touch on Coldie. I think, you know, I had a piece resell at Sotheby's a couple months ago, and they did honor royalties. So I think it's like, you know, this ethos is working more than outside of the Web3 space than inside the Web3 space somehow. But yeah, I think you know, I think Pendar was sending people postcards as a, you know, thank you to people that paid royalties. He's doing a new drop this week that the first 50 people that pay royalties over the sale price will get a physical print. And so I think, you know, there's interesting aspects. I'm curious to see what Yuga Labs does with Magic Eden in terms of incentivizing with ape tokens, or I don't know what their plans are.
Yep.
But that could be a blueprint, you know. I do think incentives are better than punishment. We don't ever want to like make people feel punished for collecting and supporting our art. That's never something I want to do. But I want to encourage people to tip, if that makes sense, you know.
Yeah, I agree as well. Right. The other
and one thing,
Go ahead,
and
Coldie.
I'll hop in there again. I think there's always been ways to augment betting on yourself, and I think a lot of artists, and one of the first people I ever saw do this was Josie. She always kept her #1 editions, and I think, you know, whatever happens with royalties, there's different ways to bet on yourself. You know, you can bet on yourself through building community. You can bet on yourself by owning your own art, and sometimes purchasing back your own art, which I bought back my own Genesis piece because it was available, and I was like a collector and myself. I was like, I want to own that thing, so I bought it back, right? So I think, and I know Bryan, I think has done the same thing. There's just different avenues that I think artists need to look at, and not just say, oh man, commissions are gone. There's no way to like benefit on my own success. Well, there is. You know, like you got to like put your money where your mouth is sometimes, you know.
Yeah. And, you know, shout out to fake rares. I mean, I think all the artists get 10% of their supply, which is great, which I immediately went and traded to a bunch of other artists to get their fake rares. You know, and I think that's like the fun aspect of it. And I've bought back some of mine on secondary as well, because I want to keep trading other artists and build up my fake rare collections in a way that like it's going into artists that appreciate me and I'm appreciating them. And that's like the best way to do it. So yeah, I think there's a lot of different ways to go about it, but I'm still very optimistic about the space, and I think the more people understand like artists making a living is better for their whole ecosystem than collectors making all the money as well. You know, a collector should make 95% or whatever, but that little tip helps the artist keep making art.
Go ahead, Jamex.
Well, it's okay that sometimes royalties don't work, but yeah, like they say, what's like embedded in the spirit of the new technology. And I sometimes miss it because it having royalties could open the door to a new way of work entirely. For example, I'm focused on animation, and I always dream, well, someday I could make an animation with 5 animators helping me, and I could grant them. Like I could automatically grant them some piece of the art if it gets resold or anything, right? Like for like humanity, I think that technology could benefit in many, like have a deep impact in other activities.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about it a lot, just in regards to like gaming and stuff like that. And you know, at some point we have to be able to. There has to be a place for royalties. Certainly, when it comes to like, if we ever really want NFTs to be a part of gaming, you have to get the royalty kind of situation figured out. But JD Harmony, what's up, man?
Hello, everyone. Thank you for letting me speak. I just wanted to share a little bit of what I've learned in the past year as a developer and also as a Web3 community member. And I think this topic is key, figuring out how artists can thrive in the space. And there are technologies out there that are trying to figure this out. And I came into the space because I saw the R Drive team was in here, and what they're working on in Arweave with the permaweb, I think is important for music artists. So if no one has heard of atomic assets or the universal data license, these are things that some really smart people are working on right now on that network, which allows you to store your art or your music, your contract, and also tags that can point to a license detailing what are the terms of use for your contents. Once you have that atomic assets on the permaweb, then what builders need to do is build a platform around it where the UI is gonna, for example, allow artists to get paid every time a song is streamed, or allow artists to get paid royalties, but this is going to be implemented on chain right inside of the atomic asset with all of the things that you need to have this music NFT live on the blockchain. So it's great that Brian, you mentioned that, or whoever mentioned it before. There are technologies out there. It is on us to do the research and figure out how to make this work. But I can tell you firsthand, with the universal data license and what they're doing with atomic assets, I think this is the way forward for music NFT artists. And I just wanted to share that because they're in here, and the Art Drive team, they're great, and they're working on solving these issues right now as we speak. And thank you for letting me speak.
Cool. Can you, if you find a tweet about that product, can you pin it to the top of the spaces? Would love to share more about that for everybody that's here. I'm
on it.
Yeah,
I'll do it right now.
Appreciate it. Yeah, it's interesting. I like to do a lot of like comparing and contrasting of different types of ecosystems. And again, right, Bitcoin started in this way of as Fake Rares does. You hold back a certain amount of the supply, and then you have a primary sale, and then you work to trade with artists, and it builds this like kind of communal effort. It was very similar to kind of how the ETH NFT started, right? CryptoPunks held back 10% of the supply. Ultimately, they ended up, selling part of that into an auction and so on and so forth. And then I believe the royalty structure started with Dada back at the end of 2017. And then OpenSea really just radicalized it and showed that this was the proper way to go. And then in the bear market now, right, Blur and all these type of tokenomic kind of incentive systems that favored liquidity, right, more than it favored kind of royalties, the primary liquidity, kind of sent everything to zero. Adam and I talk about this kind of a lot about how royalties are on its way to zero, but honestly, at this pace, marketplace fees might go to zero as well. And
is it all going to zero? Please tell me it's not all going to zero, bro.
But when you think about that world, right, it kind of
that's amazing.
Creates a little bit more of a level playing field between the creators and the marketplaces. But then it creates this world of just straight tokenomic incentives, which could be a quite crazy world, right? Quite lucrative, but it also, I guess you'd say like the integrity and some of the morals kind of get lost when you get this like kind of hyper tokenomic world. That's kind of where I see it's going, but with the different chains with Bitcoin, right? It's been the same way, and I don't see that changing. Whereas Ethereum, right, the foundation of Ethereum is always consistently changing with upgrades, and it seems like it's just this never-ending game of whack-a-mole. But I would love to welcome and hear what Carsonated has to say to the stage. One of the OGs, Fake Rare artists. What is good, bro? You there?
You're muted, man. No, we can't hear you. You got to leave and come back, I guess. We lost you. Go ahead, Coldie, man. What's up?
I say I don't hear him.
And just one thing to add to that narrative is there was a group of us spearheaded by Matt Cain and Sparrow and Bart Ianson, and a lot of money was in that. Rest in peace. Where there's a thing that happened where the platform started with 10% commissions, and then it went down to 3%. And there was a manifesto made where all of there's like 15 of us that we all signed this thing saying, hey, we have to stand up for the artists that are coming ahead of us, as well as ourselves, that we need to all agree between the marketplaces, the collectors, and the artists that 10% is, if we can all agree on that, then we'll keep minting on the platforms, right? We had to make a stand. And that was a huge moment for all of crypto artists. Most of them had not come yet, but there was a lot of kind of risk that we put on the line to like stand up for that, because just like taxes keep going up, there's no way to ever change the trajectory. And when it came to royalties, we couldn't bear seeing that 10% go to 3, because once you go from 10 to 3, you're basically going to be a 0 the next time, right? So I think keeping that narrative alive, and like we're always fighting for that shit. Like I'm not willing to say royalties are over. It's not, right? So it's just we're in a phase where we need to figure out what's equitable and maybe like find ways for that to work for everybody. But like it's not dead at all.
Totally agree with you. I think, we've discussed it a lot because it's a big issue, and it's not only a big issue for, artists, which is obviously is a big issue. But it's an issue for projects. It's a big issue for gaming, across the board. And I do feel like it's at the point where I feel like it will get solved to some degree. And maybe it's an atomical solution. Maybe it's just, tweaking the contracts themselves. As with Bryan, I'm very excited to see what Yuga and Magic Eden come up with, what their strategy is. Just seeing this all play out, it's going to be pretty interesting over the next couple of years. But I think what we've seen is like when you take away royalties and it just becomes this blur, race to the bottom thing. It's really not great for anybody except traders. And, most of us here are not simply traders, right? We trade, but we're also collectors. We're also artists. We're also building projects, right? So there's so much more to it. Carson, you back, man? Can we get your mic figured out?
Hopefully I'm back. Can you guys
You're
hear
back,
me?
brother. You're back.
Excellent. Thank you. Thanks for having me up. Thanks for putting up with my lo-fi tech situation here.
Yeah, you're all good.
I wanted to, I just kind of wanted to pop up and pop in because I know there's probably going to be a lot of new fake rare participants and artists that are probably interested in participation. And I wanted to kind of straighten something that I did hear a few minutes ago. I heard that fake rare artists get 10% of their supply, and I wanted to clarify how the directory works. That in fact artists get 100% of their supply, and I think that's important for people that are going to be coming in to know that they have the ultimate decision with their creation. So there is no museum, there is no required burn, there is no required gifting or anything with any of your supply. Once you're in the directory, it's 100% freedom for you to do as you see fit, as you decide. And the directory would prefer everybody distributes and gets those things out there, but we've had situations where there are very lightly distributed cards, and that's not really anything that we would see get pushed on, or a tap on the shoulder and say, hey, you need to get those out in the world. But there are different distribution mechanisms that people use, like the dispensers, scarcity, Emblem vaults, Pepe WTF drops, and all of those different places have their own structure and their own requirements. So saying that you get to keep 10% of your supply, I just wanted to make sure everybody knows you keep 100% of your supply, and you get to decide how you work with those third-party entities, just so that nobody's confused and thinks that there's some hard and fast rule that they get 10% of what they make. You get to decide what you do with your art 100%. The directory is basically a magazine or a book publisher that is including you into a collection, not so much a rule maker about how you share your art with the world.
Very cool.
Thank you for the clarification.
Great clarification.
One of the fascinating aspects of the Pepe community is, Carson, what you spoke on, the variety of distribution mechanisms, right? When you hang out on ETH, the primary distribution is, hey, just sell it on OpenSea. But when you're on Bitcoin or you're in the Pepe community, you're essentially like your own Pepe dealer. And it's right. You're like Brian. You're gonna go trade the cards with other individuals. Do you want to go sell some on ETH? Do you want to go trade these or put them into a game or just hold on to them and rise the market? That's what I've always found fun, because it's another layer of social kind of theory or game theory within itself that's kind of wrapped up in the community because of the non-standardization of Bitcoin and how all the token systems are all kind of unique within themselves. So
Jake, on that, I'd love to get Bryan. I think I've asked this to Coldie before when we've had him on, but Bryan, I'd love your viewpoint on that. If we have any, artists, aspiring artists out, listening to this now, how you look at it, because a lot of artists I talk with, they don't know how to market, how to sell, they want to just be artists, right? They don't want to have to like shill their art, right? How do you look at that, and how do you kind of frame it for yourself? Like, and how would you advise a young artist who, geez, I don't know how to sell cards. I don't want to sell cards, right? Like, just looking at it from their perspective, how do you view that, and what advice would you give to a young artist thinking about that?
In terms of in general, or in terms of
just in turn, I mean, you could take a very specific example, like with fake rares, right? Where it's like, well, how do you think about, becoming, selling your art, like just in the most basic sense, right? And kind of get over that hurdle, because I think you do it really well. As I follow you on X and stuff, you do, it's not shilly at all. It's very, connective in nature. I'd just love to hear your thoughts on that.
Well, in general, I've given the advice of kind of dividing yourself three ways. One is making art, the other is making marketing material and tweets and marketing art, and the other is authentically being a part of the space and connecting with people and having real conversations and kind of integrating into communities. And so with Fake Rare, one of the things I recommend to artists is try to target things in the space that are, I don't know how to describe it, a vibe or part of the culture or a community that really cares about the bigger picture of things. Sometimes that could be something like the memes cards or the noble cards or the fake rares. I look at those type of things, ordinals is that right now as well. You go, what is the culture building right now that will probably last over a certain period of time and still be a tight group of people? And so targeting those as like communities to get involved with is much smarter than trying to chase the daily PFP drop that's going to pump and dump. And so I think, that's just my advice for artists is look around at the things that are not just hot right now, but the things that have been building over time and are still active and have a strong community in Telegram and stuff like that. Those are the ones that, if you're going to be a part of it, you're not just selling your art, you're a part of this bigger ecosystem, and then you're a part of the culture that grows out of that. Some of the things I think back on, like the Worm NFT, I did an airdrop for the first 100. Like that to me is a cool culture built around this NFT that had nothing to do with money. It was all about community. And, same with having like a trait in crypto dick butts. Like that's the kind of thing that like you don't think about it at the time, but you're like, oh, this is fun and goofy. And then a couple years later, it's like a cult, and then you're a part of this cult indefinitely because you're embedded into its culture. And so that's just advice for artists, is to kind of look at where you think interesting things are building.
Bryan,
I gotta ask you, what number did you get the worm? I'm 34. I grinded for that worm. What number are you, bro?
Early.
I'm in the 80s or 90s. I forget exactly which one, but I definitely got into some people's DMs and I was like, I see you have the worm. Can I please have it?
That was a lot of fun. That was a really fun experience.
Bryan, I do have one kind of deeper question as well. You mentioned not, trading PFPs and stuff, but you do have a piece of artwork or a collaboration with Goblin Town, which I found fun. I own a few of those. I'm a big Goblin Town fan, and take us through your experience as as an individual artist, but then contributing to projects that maybe you have and some ideological viewpoints that you share.
Yeah, well, first of all, when the goblins first came out, I was salty. I didn't have them running up to a crazy amount of money. But then I slowly realized that the people behind it were people I knew. I'd met Caesar, and I've now become buddies with Process Gray, who's an absolutely incredible artist. And kind of, I knew about Truth and all that kind of stuff, and I knew the ethos of what they were building. Again, was more of a cult community than a PFP. And so when they kind of did this Grumple drop, which the reason I kind of, I got paid with they paid me a goblin and a Grumple essentially. And then they split all the artists' royalties, which doesn't really matter anymore. I think we made like an ETH or two off of it. The idea was, these are free and they're a surprise, and I get excited about that kind of stuff. I don't, if it can be purely fun, then it's exciting. And so with the Grumples, what I liked about it was it allowed me to kind of make a PFP project, but it didn't have to be a 10K project. It was, I think, 180 total PFPs as a part of this bigger collection, but it still let me kind of work that artistic gear of like, how would I build a PFP if I could? And so for me, it was kind of just like a fun experiment with very low risk because it's only 180, and it's also part of this other thing that had awesome artists like Adam Tastic and Mumbot and Tiffatron and amazing other artists. And so for I really enjoyed that aspect of it, that it was kind of separate from the goblins in a way, where it was like we can all just build our own versions of what a goblin could be. And so yeah, I think I look back at that one pretty fondly. I like those. What I came up with those.
Yeah, your art came out fantastic. I love the one with the glasses. It reminds me a little. It reminds me.
Matches your nouns.
Reminds me a little bit of Captain Underpants' artistic style.
Oh yeah, I can see that. Yeah.
No,
I think Process Gray is like so stupidly talented. It's insane. Like he can so many different styles. I got to go on a retreat with him earlier this year up to Ghost Shrimp's cabin camp in Vermont, and I was just watching him like paint with brushes on paper, and it just blew my mind. He was able to just craft an insanely awesome art in like seconds.
Yeah, that is a cool experience. Jamex, I know you've had your hand up. Thank you for being patient.
No, don't worry. Well, constructing on what Bryan says is like the NFT space is full of open studios, and that's super cool. They're like Pepe, it's an open studio, and you can join and try to make a Pepe or with the goblins and the moffers, and it's like inside cartoons or inside the IP that it's alive, and that's amazing. And something that Carson was saying that it's really cool about Pepe is that when you get to the directory, maybe you don't sell it, you just hold your stash of Pepes, but eventually somebody, and that's super social, eventually somebody's gonna look for you and it's gonna say, hey, could you sell me one of those Pepes? And that feeling is amazing because sometimes you forget about the Pepe, and months later somebody wants to have like a complete set of Pepes, and if your Pepe is there, it's like, well, I need your Pepe. That's super cool.
Yeah, I agree as well. Dogfather, what's on your mind?
Yeah, I want to chime in on what Casaneda was saying and JMX. I mean, I think the Pepe and the fake rares are like the ideal community to be in a community, right? Because you trade with others, you want to build a collection. Everyone is in the same boat. You have like crazy OGs in there, like Red Skrilla and then other, Pepe artists from, back in the days when the word NFT was not around. So you hang around with these OGs, you trade cards, you have fun. I haven't met anything close to that. So they created the crypto art movement, and the fake rares are an ideal opportunity to have a similar community. Some of the old members, some new ones, like Bryan and Coldie and Dimitri Cheniak and all these ETH superstars, all coming together and forming a community. So I think you cannot be more bullish about something like that, the project like that. I mean, we cannot, thank Reskrilla enough. Big props to him to put together such a great, community and pushing that, doing IRL events, and man, I love that so much. I tried to get in with some mediocre artwork. I was rejected. So yeah, that's why you see it's a high quality. It's a high quality.
It's high quality when they reject me, man. 100%.
If they let me into a club, it's a shitty club, right? I mean, it's not good enough to go there if they let me in, right?
Yeah.
No, I'm just kidding. It's really like, for everyone who is listening to the recording or live here, try your luck. Be creative and be part of the Pappy community. I mean, that's awesome. I did a quick analysis that many of the OG Pappies are also active in the fake rares. I mean, how cool is that? I mean, you're like working and trading and forming a community with like the true OGs of our space, plus all the newcomers and the superstars from ETH. Wow, I mean that's so cool. I love the Pappies.
Yeah, the cross pollination of artists between Bitcoin and the variety of Bitcoin protocols and Ethereum, I think it's a lot more apparent during this bear market than it's really ever been. Probably because there's just a little bit more experimentation, and now the Bitcoin ecosystem is a little bit grown a little bit further. But we've talked about this on the show a lot. You watch the progression of kind of the Pepe values of rare Pepe move over to fake rares, which then kind of moved over to ETH with notable Pepes, right? And then fake rares brought the ETH artists over to Bitcoin, and right, and then notable Pepe took the Bitcoin Pepe artists over to Ethereum, and now ordinals, right? And Coldie experimented with ordinals, and now I think recently with BitGod's perpetuals drop, where he brought 21 artists over from Ethereum to do this kind of like collective. To me, it feels very, very obvious that there's going to be a lot more synchronicity between the Bitcoin and ETH NFT art communities than ever before. And I do think Pepe and the values that the Rare Pepe communities instilled is a main reason why that proliferation is now happening. What's up, Bryan?
Yeah, I just wanted to give a shout out to Emblem Vault. I mean, the recent changes you guys have made to giving each collection its spot on OpenSea effectively has been enormous for attention. And I think, to collectors out there, there's some amazing works in this collection by some amazing artists, and often it's probably the most affordable way you can buy a piece by Joe Pease or Dimitri, or there's just really awesome work kind of scattered throughout this, like Jack Kaido. So the fact that it's so much easier now to view that on OpenSea. I mean, you could always go to the Pepe website, which was great, but I feel like now more than ever, it's so much more accessible. And I just want to give a shout out to Emblem Vault for all the upgrades they've been doing.
I really, really, really appreciate that. Yeah, we're still in the process, but we've made some gigantic hurdles over the last few weeks. So we'll have some more updates here in the next few weeks about that. It does bring up a good point, and I'll present this to you, Bryan, first, and then I'll ask Coldie. We have this kind of motto that we kind of run by at Emblem, and it's called meeting collectors where they are. Right. So when we did Coldie's ordinals drop, we brought it to Ethereum because Coldie said, hey, his collectors on Ethereum, they're probably more comfortable getting those cells out. When you release your art, do you ever take that into consideration of like meeting collectors where they feel most comfortable? Or do you take the other side of bringing your community to a new opportunity and assisting them to kind of learn these new ecosystems? Or how do you think about that?
That's a good question. I think sometimes I do drops with the hopes that it's an educational purpose to like show people what's possible. But on the other end, one of the biggest challenges artists have right now is putting all of our stuff in one spot that's easily accessible. Whether it's, First Mates or Right Click Save or Deca or any of these things. The fact that, Emblem Vault's more accessible makes it a lot easier for me to go point people to get my fake rare. So it's a bit of both. Everything you can. I've done weird drops on weird platforms, and I think I was a part of the first Polygon PFP drop, and like bridging was confusing, and OpenSea didn't support it at the time, and it was a huge mess. And so like as much as you try to push these things forward, sometimes you're pushing them a little too early.
Yep.
And so, it's always a building process, but I'm excited that things are continuing to improve. Everyone talks about the ups and downs of the space, but I'm a real believer that we're just continuing to push forward constantly.
Yeah, agree. Large infrastructure improvements. Yeah, and a little side note before I pass this off to Coldie, one of the products that Emblem wants to release is these multi-chain curated collections. So you can have basically Bitcoin NFTs, Ethereum NFTs, Solana NFTs, etc., all on one smart contract on Ethereum. So we believe that it'll be easier then to assess collections. So, like for example, one person we're talking with, he has a collection on Bitcoin stamps, Bitcoin ordinals, Ethereum inscriptions, I think cursed ordinals. And so to get those all right on one smart contract will be a super cool experience once we do get to that. So that is a product that we think will also help for artists as well. And also we're pursuing a few different kind of royalty structures, or trying to. A little bit difficult from the technical side, but yeah, pursuing all of those to make it a much easier experience.
I would love that for certain things, like let's say like the Dewdrops thing I did earlier this year. That platform ends tomorrow because it was built on Recur. So if you have it, go please get it off of Recur by tomorrow. But like that's something that like I could wrap into my own thing along with a bunch of other additions I've made and have a more full-featured Brian Brinkman editions contract.
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
I mean, basically, this is allowing you to take your, NFT. Say it's an ETH NFT, but your collector's on Solana, and they want to actually hold it in their Solana wallet. One button, they can migrate it to Solana. That sort of functionality, we think is going to be pretty big. We're betting heavily on it because we just know that people currently, at least in Web3, do tend to get siloed in their respective blockchains.
Yeah, it's like the contract to hold all contracts, like the ring of powers.
Yeah, it's tough. It's tough compiling it all, right? As Brian and Coldie were talking in the beginning, I was going through guys' websites on the live stream, and you have to categorize them all differently, and all these different links. It makes it a little bit difficult. And then you mentioned, right, you have some platforms that go under, right? There's been a handful of ETH NFT marketplaces that have gone under, unfortunately, over this bear market. So, and you don't want to lose those assets. So to keep that integrity there is very important.
So I'm just thinking, like Coldie has NFT boxes. I own a couple of his NFT boxes. I wonder, can you wrap ETH within another, like an ETH contract into a new ETH contract? Because
yeah, absolutely.
Could he then put it under Coldie's minting name, essentially?
yeah. All of that's is possible. We have a pretty good dev team. It's just getting there, I guess, is the hard part. But
Cool.
we want to support artists in any way possible. So getting that all in one spot, and then eventually it's to then hand the keys off to the artist so that Emblem doesn't even have to control the contract. But yeah, getting there in time, hopefully, should happen some point next year.
Yeah, I guess the challenge is identifying the artist in every blockchain, right? Like, because if you made a name change or something, it's like hard.
Yeah, I agree. Right, and then the proliferation of just Bitcoin NFTs and all the different types. There's like 6 or 7 different protocols now on Bitcoin that are all minting art. So tough to follow. Coldie, I did want to present you this question because you've kind of been on the frontier of this, of meeting collectors where they are versus the educational piece. You have ETH NFTs, you've done Counterparty, you've done Bitcoin ordinals. And when you go into minting on a new blockchain or protocol, what type of thoughts and considerations do you think about before releasing the project?
I think it's like kind of, I mean, my first answer is that essentially like we decide our destiny. And as an artist, I'm going to do what I want to do. And I think that as we go down a path and we find people who are in our tribe, there is a sense of like kind of looking out for them in a sense, but also more like they need to trust the artist. And if you want to be a part of the ride, maybe I take a left turn and I do something totally different, and they can choose to be a part of that or not. But I think it's super important not to like start pandering to a market or like what your one of one collectors are saying to you, like, oh, if you mint over there, I'm not going to buy it. Well, probably says more about your relationship with the artist or whatever. It just that I hate having that be a thought in my mind because it just pollutes everything, right? So for me, when I decide to go to, let's say, specifically like when I did my ordinals drop, it was awesome because when I've done a lot of mints in the past, some of them were Bitcoin themed, and it just didn't quite feel right to be tokenizing on Ethereum when I was doing like Bitcoin themed art. So when I was proposed this, ordinals drop and the Casey Rod Armor portrait I did, those were specific to the chain, and I think that adds a lot to the story, the theme, the provenance, the historical relevance, is to use the chain as an aesthetic and a part of the story itself. And I think that collectors over time can see that theme, right? And before, I was just always Ether, so shit, the Bitcoin idea went on to Ether too, right? Because that's all I had. But now that I, think about that, whenever I do ordinals drops, there is that consideration, right? Like, what is the storyline that makes this an ordinals drop? It's not just another place to put art.
Yeah, very, very well put. It is interesting to hear all of the variety of perspectives that all of the faker artists portray, bringing your own community's cultural relevance. It is really awesome. We have been doing this for about an hour, so I want to respect everybody's time. Bryan, Coldie, I really appreciate you guys for coming on the Fake Rare show. We do this every Wednesday. It's really cool to sit down and just hear your perspectives, not just on art, but Bitcoin and pursuing kind of your integrity from your artistic expressions. All of it. I really, really appreciate it for both of you.
Thanks for having us. This was fun.
Yeah, thanks. It's always a pleasure. Bryan, huge fan. Shout out. It's great to get like we meet friends. Like let's just take a second. Like I call Bryan a friend, and I'm 40. I'm a 40-year-old man, and it's very hard to find friends when you're older. It's right. Like we live our lives, and like I just want to give a shout out to everybody who's taken the chance to meet somebody in the space, not just for flipping, but to be friends with, right? Like, and Bryan's one of those people. Like, whenever I fucking see him around, it lightens my day. We just have fun together. He's a great guy, and that goes to other people I've met. But just big hug to Bryan. He's the fucking shit. Wonderful artist. There's just a lot of love in the space too. Let's not forget about that.
Thank you, man. Am I going to see you in Miami?
You are.
Hell yeah. Is there going to be a Pepe show in Miami? There was last year.
I hope so. See you there.
Yeah, if there is, let us know.
Yeah.
I believe they were. Absolutely. I believe they were considering it last time we talked. They were talking about. I don't know for certain though. Skrill is probably the guy to talk to. But
I know they have a mansion for Miami, and probably there's gonna be a party, but don't have all the details.
Yeah.
A Pepe mansion party sounds like a do not miss, and like a blackout on the stairs type of thing. Or you just wake up on the stairs. That's what I'm gonna do.
Wake up in the backyard, sprinklers going, and everything.
Yeah. Release the frogs. Let's go.
Release the frogs. Yeah. Bryan, again, Coldie, really appreciate it. For those that don't know, we host this show every Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday at 11:30 a.m. Eastern time. We talk everything from rare Pepes to counterparty to multi-chain to collecting. That's everything we want to do. The complete antithesis of some of the other spaces that you typically see in the space. We're here for love and collecting and the blockchain. And so tomorrow we're talking with Transient Labs and Seneca, talking about a new ERC 7160 standard. Adam is going to be speaking at some Costa Rican crypto conference.
Some shady Costa Rican crypto conference. Blockchain jungle. If anybody's in Costa Rica tomorrow, it is supposedly big. I don't know. We're gonna have some fun over there. I don't even know what I'm talking about yet, but I'm sure we'll have some fun.
Gotta love it. Again, yeah, feel free, everyone. Make sure you give everyone a follow. Give Bryan a follow. Give Coldie a follow. Give Emblem Vault and everyone a follow. And we'll see you guys then tomorrow.